What's up, everyone? Hope y'all doing good. I'm Anthony K. Thomas, and welcome to Wrestling with Rumors. Welcome, everyone. Final Wrestling with Rumors of the year. And before we get into this episode, like I say every week, every rumor that I am about to read is exactly what it is. It is a rumor. We can speculate as wildly as we want, but until that rumor is proven true, confirmed in some other way as fact, or we see it actually happening on television, every rumor remains what it is, a rumor. So with that, let's get into everything that is Wrestling with Rumors. The Hardy Boys have not signed new contracts with TNA, says Fightful Select, but signs point to a deal being done soon enough. With a possible deal being done pretty soon, I would imagine that the Hardy Boys are looking for something, a little something more specific in what they're looking for, a new contract with TNA. It is also possible that they don't sign a new contract with TNA and they end up having one last run in WWE. But I think the signs of them eventually signing a new contract with TNA are higher than coming back to WWE for a possible last run. So I would bet on the Hardy Boys sticking around a lot longer in TNA, getting that new contract, and keep moving forward in what they're doing in TNA, especially into 2026 when that first episode of Impact airs on AMC. Danhausen's contract with AEW will expire in February, says Fightful. He apparently hasn't been seen backstage or factored into creative plans in a long time. It has been months. It almost feels like it's been a year since we've seen Danhausen on AEW television. But I think his time in AEW television is basically done. Just waiting for his contract to officially expire. But I think his time in AEW is done. And as far as what his future looks like, stay tuned for that. I'm going to revisit that part of the story in just a little bit, that part of the rumor in just a little bit. TC WrestleVotes noted ESPN wanted the WWE draft on its streaming platform, but excuse me, but the idea never got off the ground because it doesn't work in a PLE style setting. It doesn't. It really doesn't work as a PLE setting. It's not supposed to be a PLE setting. The draft, the WWE draft, pardon me, the WWE draft has always been something that either starts on Raw or SmackDown and ends on Raw or SmackDown. It's always been something that we see on television, and I was a little disappointed and frankly a little sad that we didn't get the draft this year. I was really looking forward to the WWE draft and how they were going to present that, with the draft being like on Raw for Netflix, and then on SmackDown for USA Network. I was really looking forward to seeing how that was all going to play out. I'm sure there wasn't going to really be any big changes to it. Maybe some little changes based that one is on Netflix and the other is on USA Network, at least here in the States. It really wouldn't have changed the draft that much for those internationally who get all of WWE on Netflix, from Raw to NXT to SmackDown to the PLEs, which I still stick by saying that's how it should be here in the States as well, that everything WWE should just been on Netflix, not on ESPN, and not ESPN and Peacock, just everything on Netflix. You know, if we can't have the WWE Network anymore, which for those who never got to experience the WWE Network, it really was the one-stop shop for everything, and the future of what that was, we were all hoping that would look like, where eventually Raw and SmackDown would be on the WWE Network, because NXT was on the WWE Network. And for Raw and SmackDown to hopefully one day just been on the WWE Network, you just get everything on the network. We were all, I honestly believe that there were so many of us that were looking for that in WWE Network's future. And then it didn't go out that way. It didn't go out. WWE Network eventually faded out, which is very sad because it was a great network. It was a one-stop shop. It was the WWE archives. It was pay-per-views, PLEs, and then we were just waiting for Raw and SmackDown to get on there, and it didn't go out that way. And now PLEs are over here. PLEs here in the States are over here. PLEs in internationally are over here with Raw, SmackDown, and NXT. And PLEs for NXT, at least for now, are over here. And Raw is down here. It's all over the place. And I get it's all, but at the end of the day, it's about money and getting the most from what you can. But for convenience and for the fans, one-stop shop for everything, one spot everywhere. It's how it should have been. It should have been that way. They should have kept WWE Network going. That's how it should have been. And if they weren't going to keep doing that, then make it one-stop shop for every worldwide Netflix for everything. And they didn't do that. So frustrations on that case. But getting away from the draft. The draft would have never worked on ESPN as a PLE. No, Raw and SmackDown only. And it sucks it didn't happen this year. And if that was the reason why they didn't do the WWE draft this year because they couldn't make it work on ESPN, then F you, ESPN, for that. And shame on WWE for not doing the draft, regardless if it doesn't work on ESPN. Who cares if it doesn't work on ESPN? It's not supposed to work on ESPN. It's supposed to work on Raw and SmackDown back and forth. That's how it's always been. And to take a phrase from TLC, why go chasing waterfalls when you got rivers and lakes that all of us are used to when it comes to the draft? So, damn. Anyway, moving forward, they also note, TC of WrestleVotes also noted that there is a ton of hype around Carmelo Hayes with a hugely positive reaction in his recent title win at SmackDown. Absolutely. Last night, Carmelo Hayes, Ilya Dragunov, they put on a clinic in a PLE-worthy United States Championship match. Holy cow. Excuse me. That was a hell of a match. Definitely, as for a final episode of SmackDown, they went out on top and gave us a clinic. That was a hell of a match. And then to see that final episode of SmackDown, Carmelo Hayes finally get his first WWE main roster championship in the United States Championship. Hell yes. So happy. The one time that he needed to make that shot, and he made that shot, he did not miss, and he captured that championship. That was a hell of a match. And then to see the respect from Ilya Dragunov after Carmelo Hayes got the win, to be the one to hand the championship over to him, was like, you were the better man tonight. Congratulations. That was great. Great championship match. Great championship match. Only good things about that. So to close that out on SmackDown, and also that being the final 2-hour show as we go into this Friday's episode of SmackDown, first episode of the year, first episode of 2026, pardon me, and also that being the 3-hour episode and on moving forward. I'm looking forward to it. Looking forward to it. And I'll also add that the call-ups for NXT in 2026 mostly I feel are going to SmackDown. I am excited for. Woo! PW Insider has followed up on its word of commentary changes coming in 2026 to reveal Corey Hayes will join Michael Cole on Monday Night Raw. Nice. while Joe Tessitore and Wade Barrett will call Friday Night SmackDown. Nice. Going back to they're switching back. You got Corey Graves and Michael Cole calling Raw. Love it. And you got Joe Tessitore and Wade Barrett going back to SmackDown. Excellent. I love this commentary team, how it pans out. Corey Graves is right now the voice of AAA wrestling for us Americans, but he is absolutely the future voice of WWE. That I feel that reigns will go to Corey Graves when Michael Cole retires. You know, it went JR to Michael Cole. Michael Cole, I believe, will go to Corey Graves next. Because how Corey Graves is on commentary is fantastic. You know, he's only gotten better since he was forced to retire because of his neck, and he's now cleared. He can wrestle again. He's staying in the commentary, on the commentary side, because I think he loves wrestling. He loves pro wrestling, but on the side that he's on, there's so much more opportunities for him, and just how he calls it's it's comical at times, sarcastic, and it's great. So I see Corey Graves in the future of that. But as far as Raw and SmackDown, how it looks first of the year, I like how it looks. It's a good switch around. So yeah. Dave Meltzer said on Wrestling Observer Radio that Oba Femi, Joe Henry, and Sol Ruca are all being fast-tracked to the main roster, and Femi in particular is seen as a major main eventer. Yeah, he is. That match he had a couple weeks ago, Saturday night's main event against Cody Rhodes. Pardon me on that. I lost it for a second. Against Cody Rhodes is a future main event WWE Championship match I think we should look out for. Possibly not with Cody Rhodes if he does not get past, if he's unable to successfully defend his championship against Drew McIntyre in 2 weeks on SmackDown in Germany. So we'll see about that. But seeing Oba Femi in that role, it's not surprising. He is going to be the guy. And I know there's a lot of people, from what I've read in rumors in the past, that believe Braun Breaker is the guy. But I don't think it's Braun Breaker. I think it's Oba Femi. I really believe that it's Oba Femi that will be the guy, the future guy in WWE. I think they'll give it to Braun Breaker to see how he does, and I think Braun Breaker will be fine as the guy for a while holding the championship. But as far as a guy like what John Cena was, a guy like what Stone Cold, what The Rock, what Shawn Michaels, what Undertaker, what the American Nightmare, Cody Rhodes is now, I think that is in Oba Femi's future. He's going to be like that guy, the quarterback, the number one guy, the ruler, as he calls himself, as we all call him, because he is the ruler, and he is absolutely going to be that guy in WWE in the future, in a very near future, I will say. So, and the call-ups, we saw Joe Henry on SmackDown this past Friday, against The Miz. It was a Miracle on 34th Street match, so it was a gimmick match. It was a match just to have fun with, nothing too serious. But we've seen Joe Henry in those serious type matches, so we know how he can handle it. But to see him on SmackDown, it fit, it's right, and I feel he's definitely going on SmackDown. See Trick Williams making the rounds as a free agent seeing him on SmackDown and hearing that he talked to Adam Pearce on Raw. Absolutely. We got some call-ups coming up from NXT, and it's going to be a great 2026 to see these call-ups. You got Sol Ruca who beat Bayley. That's amazing. That was great for her. That was a great win for her. So all of this is coming up real nice. So 2026, and I know I'm missing a couple names that have showed up in the past, and I apologize if I forget those names. But there's so much to look forward to in WWE in 2026 that I'm excited for. Russell Votes says there have been internal talks in WWE about Joe Henry having a regular presence on SmackDown now that the show is expanding to 3 hours. It sounds like the USA Network wants Henry on the show, and that is a factor in WWE's decision making. I think one of the parts that USA Network liked about Joe Henry on SmackDown this past Friday was that we got a bit of a concert. We got a little bit of a concert from Joe Henry, the Joe Henry concert, on the guitar, singing, making fun of The Miz. Yeah, we got a little bit of that. So I think you add that into it, how entertaining he is. Those in USA Network like that. Excuse me, but Joe Henry just works on SmackDown. It's a right fit, for him to be on SmackDown. And so far, I know we're in the very early stages of Joe Henry being officially a WWE superstar. And we're just in the very early stages of it, but right now it just feels good. But I think as we get into 2026 and we look into spring and summer and he's deep into it, I think we'll have a better idea about how things are working for Joe Henry. Joe Henry in that first full year on the main roster on SmackDown, once he makes that transition from NXT to the main roster on SmackDown. Multiple sources told Post Wrestling that WWE's Backlash PLE will return to Puerto Rico in 2026. One source with access to an internal calendar indicates the event will take place on May 9th in San Juan. Bad Bunny's return to WWE for that event is not confirmed, but it looks like he's available based on his tour dates for next year. Now, I think all of us can remember that when Backlash was in Puerto Rico and how loud that crowd was. They were great, especially for Bad Bunny when he had his match against Damian Priest. That was a good match. But just how loud that crowd was when Bad Bunny was making his entrance, that was insane. And you gotta love Puerto Rico, man. They always show up and show out every time, especially when WWE is in town. So I don't expect anything less from Puerto Rico, from San Juan, when WWE comes to town and it's Backlash, and they show the love and pride for some of the WWE superstars who are proud Puerto Ricans. So I look forward. That's going to be a fun event to watch. I mean, yeah, it's going to Backlash San Juan. As long as this is true and this goes down, it's going to be a great, loud, show up and show out kind of event. So I'm looking forward to it. Yeah, hell yeah. Votes mention that WWE is considering an expanded travel schedule for NXT in 2026 in order to give the wrestlers more experience working in front of different audiences and environments. I think this is a great idea because this also prepares those in NXT who eventually get called up to the main roster of Raw and SmackDown. This also prepares them for how hectic a travel schedule on the main roster can be and the places you end up going. It's not just, you're not just traveling around the States, you're traveling across the world. You're not just going to you're going to Canada, you're going to Italy, you're going to Puerto Rico, you're going to Germany, you're going to Japan, you're going to England, you're going all around the world when you're in the main roster. So to expand the schedule for NXT, I think is a great opportunity to give those in NXT an experience of what it's like to have a more lucrative traveling schedule, so that they are more prepared for how intense that traveling schedule can be on the main roster. So I think this is a great idea, and I hope this is something that actually happens in 2026 for NXT. People in WWE are divided on whether or not to sign Danhausen after his AEW contract expires in early 2026, in February of 2026, per votes. Some people think he would do very well as a member of the NXT roster. So coming back from that previous rumor I talked about, Danhausen, about how his contract expires in AEW in 2026, and how he hasn't been seen anywhere near AEW, backstage, or involved in any creative in a while. We haven't seen him. So take that, connect it to this. NXT, I feel Danhausen would fit very well in NXT. Yeah, I feel that his character and what he brings as far as entertainment value and comedy and matches in the ring, I feel that it would be a great opportunity and experience for Danhausen to be signed to WWE and be a part of NXT and get that experience in the ring, improve so much more on his wrestling, being able to have all those resources, those coaches in the Performance Center, and just to add to what he already brings to the table. So I feel Danhausen in 2026, I hope he gets signed to WWE and we see him on NXT, because I feel that it's a great addition in so many different ways. So I really hope this happens. But what do you think? Let me know in the comments what you think about this one. And one last thing that I want to talk about is spoilers. I don't have any spoilers. I don't have any spoilers that I want to. I don't have any spoilers to tell you, because I wouldn't do that. I'm not that person. What I want to talk about in spoilers really quick is that they need to stop, especially during the holiday season, when WWE and AEW especially, when they double tape their episodes for the following week, when you get into the holiday season, and you have other pro wrestling sites, dirt sheets and stuff, that go ahead and say, here's the spoilers for next week's episode of Raw or SmackDown or NXT or AEW Dynamite or Collision. It's not cool. And I'm saying that because it's for starters, it's not cool. We all look forward to get to when we get through the week, to get to that episode and watch and be surprised and be shocked or be angry and boo when we're watching on television. And when a spoiler comes out, it takes the fun out of everything. For example, this past week's episode of SmackDown, there were spoilers about SmackDown, especially about Carmelo Hayes winning the United States Championship match and showing pictures of him holding it up. And you have to fight your way to ignore it and get through it to get to it. But for those who saw the spoilers and saw Carmelo Hayes won, it was a quick high of like, that's awesome. But then when you see the match, but then when you watch the match, you go into the match already had read the spoiler, knowing Carmelo Hayes is going to win. I feel that it takes the enjoyment out of the match a little bit if you already know the outcome of it, instead of someone who ignored the spoilers and waited until Friday to watch SmackDown and saw that match from start to finish, not knowing if Carmelo Hayes or Ilya Dragunov were going to win. And I felt there was more enjoyment in not with ignoring the spoilers and getting to watch the match spoiler free and just being able to sink into it. And I feel spoilers are a cancer on professional wrestling. And for those people who spill it, who just say, here you go, I feel that's a cancer, and it ruins it. I feel that in speaking like John Cena said how he wants to ruin wrestling, I feel like those who say what the spoilers are of an upcoming episode of a Raw or SmackDown when it's taped, I feel those in that moment are ruining wrestling for those who try so hard to ignore and block those spoilers just to wait out till you get to that particular episode of Raw or SmackDown or Dynamite or Collision. I feel like those people who throw out, here's what's going to happen next week, is a cancer. It's like back during the Monday Night Wars when you had WWF at the time versus WCW, and those in WCW would say what the outcomes for Raw was. Like, you say, here's who's gonna win what match and all this stuff. They would just give you out everything about how it happened. Because back then, Raw wasn't always live at that time. There were certain days where Raw was taped, and WCW Nitro was always live. So those in WCW on the commentary team would just spoil Raw and give the results for the show and then say, okay, we said that. Let's get back to the real show. That's how they would do it. And they even, and the one time they did a spoiler for a Raw where they said Mankind was going to win the WWE Championship against The Rock. It was that one time it backfired because everyone wanted to see Mankind win the WWE Championship. But it's like that. It ruins wrestling when you say the spoiler. You take the fun out of someone who works all day and who wants to come home and just wants to relax, maybe grab a beer, lay back and watch Raw or watch SmackDown. And during the holiday season, when Raw and SmackDown are taped during those 2 weeks, and then you get someone who spoils it, and you get someone that spoils the entire show and tells you how each match went, what the segments were, it just ruins the show. It takes the fun out of it. So it needs to stop. I am always someone who's always been against spoilers, even outside of pro wrestling when it comes to movies and TV shows. Like, I don't want to know anything. I want to be able to get lost in it. I want to be like Sebastian from The Neverending Story and just fall into the book and just get lost in that world. It's like when, as a writer, who has written over 13, about to be 14 books. Each story that I write is different, whether it's a love story, a mock memoir, a good versus evil story, or this new one that I'm working on that focuses on a very difficult subject within mental health. I want the person who reads my book to be able to get lost into this world that I've created and to take the ride of going up and down. And that's one of the things I love about professional wrestling, about WWE, is being able to get lost in it. Not ignoring the spoilers, ignoring those who spoil the show, whether it's their job to spoil it or not. I still feel like it ruins wrestling when you put out a spoiler. To be able to, without the spoilers, dive into that, get into that episode, sit back, and just take the ride. Go up, go down, go quick left, quick right, whatever it is. just take the ride from start to finish for that 2.5 hours, that 3 hours, that 4.5 hours, depending on the episode of Raw, SmackDown, NXT, the PLE, whatever it is. Just take the ride and enjoy it from start to finish without spoilers. So, spoilers, I'll say it one more time, are ruins wrestling, and it's a cancer on professional wrestling, and they need to stop. If you know the outcome, then that's good for you. But don't go on social media and say what it is and then ruin it for everyone else that was looking forward to that episode of Raw, that particular match on Raw, that particular match on NXT, that particular match on Dynamite, that particular match on Impact, that particular match on SmackDown, that particular match on Collision. Don't ruin it. Leave it. Like, talk about the match, but wait till after the show has aired before you talk about the match. Then that's fine, because the match is aired. Several thousands of people have already watched it. You can talk about it. For anyone who's recording it or watching, or who's going to watch it later on HBO Max or on Netflix, can watch it later and ignore what that was recorded after the results from that episode had already aired. But as far as before the episode aired, if it's taped and you spoil and then you're throwing out spoilers, man, that's not cool. And that just needs to stop. But that's what I have to say about that when it comes to spoilers. And that'll do it for this week's episode of Wrestling with Rumors. Once again, this is the last one for the year. Appreciate all of you for joining me for this year of Wrestling with Rumors. I'll be back next week, next Sunday, for a whole new year of Wrestling with Rumors. Until then, hope all of you have a good, fun, and safe week. A fun and happy and safe New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. And if you haven't yet, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Give this episode a thumbs up, leave a comment, and don't forget to take care of yourselves. I will see you next year for the next one. Peace, y'all.